Hello YouTube, it is I, RainingCardGames, and it is time for another episode of Jank Turbo. So, for today's video, we are going to try and find a home for Clock Lizard. Now, before we go ahead and do that, if you would do me the favor of liking, commenting, and subscribing, the onus is on you. Tick tock, tick tock. Let's learn about Clock Lizard. Clock Lizard. So, link 2 Cyberse monster. It takes 2 Cyberse to make it. I can tribute it, and then I can return a fusion monster from the graveyard to the extra deck, summon it again by banishing the materials from the graveyard, and then also if it is banished from the graveyard, all special summon monsters my opponent controls lose 400 for each Cyberse engraved. Now, this is an interesting card. It does tie into an actual strategy, which we will highlight in the decks, but I also want to see where we can fit it. Obviously, it's going to have to be in a fusion-based deck. That is a given, considering its effect. How relevant will it be? That is something that we are going to have to learn in the gameplay. And in order for that to happen, let's see what I've cooked up.
I can't take it anymore. Oh, dear.
Okay. Behold, this is the first deck that we're going to try to place Clock Lizard in. Branded. Obviously revolves around a fusion card, namely Branded Fusion. Really good card, also easy ash bait, so we'll see how that goes. In order to facilitate Clock Lizard, obviously Branded has no Cyberse monsters, so we have Draconet. Normal summon, special summon a level 2, normal from the deck, we're special summoning Bitron. So with these 2 cards, that will get us the 2 Cyberse requirements to create Clock Lizard. Now, in order to search, we also have Cynet Mining. So this is like basically all dedicated to getting Clock Lizard onto the field. In terms of the branded stuff, we've got triple Aluber, we've got the 1 Despian Tragedy, triple Mercurier, double Fallen of Albaz, and then the 1 Blazing Cartesia, Albion, and then we have a Bestial package, as well as our branded spell lineup. Yeah, in terms like extra deck wise, all just strong, good stuff that we're going to try to get out. And obviously, if I activate stuff like Branded Fusion or other things, I will be locked into fusion monsters. However, in terms of going first, I'm okay with not going into Clock Lizard. So the goal is, set up something like Rindbrum and then maybe a Mirror Jade, and I have extra stuff. Maybe I can bring out the, the Granguinol, the Dust Dragon. And, kind of just set up a board with some stuff like a Mercurier or Ash or like a Retribution. So, I have some interaction with my opponent, stop them on their turn, and then on the crackback, hopefully I'll have access either by already having a Draconet in hand or by Cynet Mining, activate, get a Draconet, and then I can go into Clock Lizard, and then that is where I can use it to dish out more damage. Hopefully, and this also puts in fusion material because I can use Clock Lizard as material to go into stuff like a Mirror Jade. So this is more turn 2 onwards to punch for some more damage. Pretty competent strategy. I think it should be able to stand on its own 2 legs. If we're doing a fusion related deck, you're gonna have to include this dingle dork. So, Alistair the Invoker, we are going to normal summon him. We're playing Invoke Shaddoll, and with a little bit of Dogmatica in it. And then once again, we're also still doing the Draconet package. I don't know why I sorted these different, but anyway, we're gonna still rely on the Draconet package to go up into the Clock Lizard. In terms of an Invoke Shaddoll list, it's pretty straightforward. All like the monsters that you'd expect to see in Dogmatica Invoke Shaddoll. Say goal as before. Obviously, we may not make Clock Lizard on turn 1, but on turn 2, that's when we're going to actually summon him out, so that way we can go into some of our other big fusion monsters and push in for game, and then, you know, just try and rely on stuff like Winda for turn 1, along with maybe a Makaba. Is it going to work? Probably. Probably not. Who knows? We'll see. If we're a good invoked player, even if we get ashed on the Magical Meltdown, we will already have the invocation or the Alistair in hand. So we'll see how it goes. And for the final build today, we are going to be trying to facilitate Clock Lizard with Cyber's Clock Dragon. Now, this is basically kind of Code Talkers, but also, you know, we've got stuff like Clock Wyvern, normal special, have its attack, I get a clock token. We have stuff like Cynet Fusion that we can go into, obviously, the Cyber's Clock Dragon, but we can also go into the Cyber's Dev Worm, or Deceive Worm, however you want to pronounce it. So we've got a couple of fusion options. We obviously have a little bit of a firewall engine, including the Phantom one, which I know sometimes isn't played, sometimes is, but it can add a spell specifically, even though we can add stuff like Cynet Conflict, which is a great turn 1 card. We can also add Cynet Fusion. So that way we'll be able to facilitate, get fusions into graveyard, cycling through so we can get a Clock Lizard. Clock Lizard's ability then also to get more stuff into grave can help make Cyber's Clock Dragon even bigger to really punch. I want to get some absurdly high numbers based on his effect. All in all, this, once again, I think for at least turboing out this little bit of jank right here, all the decks that we've put a shell for to facilitate Clock Lizard, they are all competent in their own right. Branded, Invoke Shaddoll, and then Code Talker all have consistency, and then in this deck also, Cynet Mining isn't just searching specifically a card to get Clock Lizard online, it's also here to help just get the Code Talkers online. So all in all, I think that this is also a really easy strategy. Oh gosh, that is a tragedy. This is a really good strategy to hopefully facilitate Clock Lizard. So now, let's see how the duels go. Alrighty, so for match number 1, we're rolling out the branded clock. We're going first. Branded clock. Anyway, we open up decently well. Unfortunately, though, we do open the Bitron as kind of a brick, which is one of the downsides of the little Draconet engine that we're running. We do have the chance of running the Garnet, but we are still able to end on a Mirror Jade with an Ash Blossom and a Mercurier in hand. That Lightning Storm deals with the branded loss, but I could care less. All my field is still on board, and I'm able to stop my opponent from popping off. They are playing Mechanco, so going second is pretty obvious for them. Luckily for us, being able to deal with their singular Hare on the field with the Mirror Jade, we can clean up shop, and you know what, even get in a little damage with the Bitron. Alright, so next up we are going to be running the Invoked version, and we are going up against a strong opponent in terms of Unchained Labyrinth, or Labyrinth Unchained, however you want to put it. Not the strongest of openings, but still, we do have to contest with this Untamed Soul of Rage and dealing with our special summon monsters, so we have to be very cautious with where we fusion summon. It does look like, however, I bring out my Winda, so at least I'm going to try to restrict them to one special summon. They go ahead and fire off, get rid of the Winda, and bring out the Anguish, and honestly, that is all I can do. I don't have too much going on. I do have some follow-up with the Draconet line, however, and hopefully we'll be able to bring out the Clock Lizard. We are able to slow down their plays with the Winda once again. Abomination does deal with a couple of my cards, but honestly, we are still in a situation where we can come back from this. So I go ahead and I normal summon my Draconet. I bring out the Bitron from the deck, which means we can finally go into the Clock Lizard. And using his effect, we can go right into the El Shaddoll Winda. We use the Alistair to boost the Winda so we can beat over the Unbombable Unchained guy, and lo and behold, we are now sitting pretty on a gigantic Winda. The question is, on the crackback, can my opponent deal with my board? That IDP that they drew potentially might be an out, and drawing a second fusion deployment is not exactly what I wanted. I try to sink in some damage, and we're able to bring my opponent down to 4,600, but then there goes Ice Dragon's Prison. That gets rid of the Winda permanently, and now I'm just sitting on a normal summoned Alistair. Yeah, and my opponent slowly assembles their board of Labyrinth, including the Unchained Abomination, and I do not think I am long for this Earth this turn. No. No, I am not. Unfortunately, during the battle phase, they are doing with a big welcome Labyrinth. They're able to turbo out enough damage to deal lethal. Alright, and then the last but not least, we are going to be showing off the Code Talker version of hopefully be able to facilitate the Clock Lizard. We are going up against Snake Eyes, and the Diabell Star hits the field. The actual deck that uses Diabell Star, not just, you know, as an engine for Rescue Ace. One single Borreload is doable as they continue to extend on through. They have 2 level 1s, one being a tuner. That means they can go potentially into the Formula Synchron line. However, they go first for the larger dragon variant so they can have the Formula Synchron on the field and then use the Snake Dragon to revive it, so that way they'll have multiple forms of interruption with us. Looks like we're going to have to face down to deal with the Borrowed Negate. That gets negated, and then they go up into a Baron de Fleur. I potentially can get through this. However, they do still have that IP Masquerena, which they do fire off, and now they have a 3-material Appaloosa. This will be a tricky board to crack, and I have to play my cards carefully. I try to bait out whatever they have. They have a hand trap for the Signet Mining. That's alright. I try to go in for the Graveyard for our Math Mech. That eats 1 negate from Appaloosa. I try for the Parallel Seed. That eats another negate from Appaloosa. I try for the Microcoder line to climb up a little bit. That gets hit with an Effect Veiler. Jeez. Then I get hit with Droll. I hit the Signet Codec. I try for the Signet Fusion. That gets negated by Baron de Fleur. And unfortunately, whilst that was pretty much all of their interactions, minus 1 Appaloosa negate, I don't have enough gas. You know, if I rewound the clock, get it, with the benefit of hindsight, would I have done anything differently? Maybe. In its home strategy, obviously these are one-off games, so obviously with more games you could potentially increase the chances of winning. Would it have won with the Clock Dragon FTK, or not FTK, but OTK strategy? I would have think so. But I digress. The surprised, well, normal summoning Alistair even works. Still in 2023, it probably will be in 2050, and you can still normal summon Alistair. Held its own 2 legs for quite a bit against a very competent strategy. Ultimately lost out in the end, but we did still get to summon him. Didn't get to use it with Branded, although I did get to beat down with the Bitron. I don't know how I feel about the engine, because obviously in some strategies you're already locked into fusion summoning. It's kind of counterintuitive with Clock Lizard, but that's also why you use it on the crackback next turn to just clean up games. I don't know. Maybe, I'm trying to think, or maybe this is where you all can chime in the comments. Can you think of any other ways to turbo out Clock Lizard in a non-cyber strategy? So obviously in like a Code Talker deck or any like kind of cyber strategy, you can easily get the materials to make Clock Lizard and facilitate it, and then also search stuff like Signet Fusion. But in a strategy like Branded or Invoked, Shaddoll, so on and so forth, are there any ways that you can get 2 cybers on the field to get into Clock Lizard? I want to hear from all of you. But anyway, that is going to do it for me in this video. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and I will see all of you in the next video.